Notre Dame football remains undefeated, but if they keep playing the way they've been playing, they may take enough years off my life by the end of the season to kill me. We'll see. Shamrock Sports starts now.
I'm Ellen Geyer, and you're watching Shamrock Sports. And my childhood dreams coming true.
You know, Notre Dame, they won it in the year that doesn't count. This doesn't matter at all. Join a conference.
Williams helmet off. He's out. Jafar Armstrong in. Fake to him. Setting up the screen to Armstrong. Here goes the senior from Missouri. Room to run inside the 10. Inside the 5. To the right. Gray lined up in the backfield. Same motion, same setup. This time it's the boot. Bryce in trouble, and he is brought down by Foskey. Now they will go. Yep, bouncing outside. It is Kyron Williams. He will go the distance. Notre Dame touchdown, Kyron Williams.
Welcome inside the second floor of the Duncan Student Center. Chris Frick alongside the always talented Chloe Stafford and John Bailey. Guys, we got a lot to talk about today. Starting off with that heart attack of a game against Toledo, barely squeaking one out. I want to get your guys' initial reactions on that. John, we'll start with you.
So I am a proud Detroiter. I love the Lions, but unfortunately, the Lions have sent me to sports therapy one too many times. And my sports therapist has been telling me, you gotta look on the bright side of things. You gotta stay optimistic. So despite the scary first two games of this Notre Dame season, I am staying optimistic, particularly because our skill positions, with wide receiver in particular, have been stellar so far. Michael Mayer is an all-pro tight end, and I think on pace to break the Notre Dame record for the single-season tight end touchdown record. And maybe go down as the greatest Notre Dame tight end of all time. Bellyman Williams has been going off. I love Tyree in the passing game. Kevin Austin Jr. has cemented himself as a wide receiver one. And yeah, Jonathan Dorer, what a man. Stanford guy. He has come back to his 2019 form in which he hit 85% of his kicks. Last year, a little bit down, 65% in 2020, but he's already 3 of 4, including a long one of 48 yards. He only missed a 54-yard kick, which would be his longest of his career. So his consistency is great. And again, being a Lions fan, I know the importance of field goals and having a good kicker, especially when the offense stagnates from time to time, which we've had a little bit already.
John, hyping this team up. Chloe, let's get a little more pessimistic with this team.
Yeah, so as we all know, Notre Dame's known for two things, our tight ends and our offensive line.
Towards the numbers on the bottom of your screen. First down, Cone, pressure, Johnson gets him again.
A lot of missed opportunities to Jack Cone because of this offensive line. The passing game, there's no time for enough passes for Jack Cone to really show his talents, and there's far too many collapsed pockets.
Yeah, I mean, this team actually, it reminds me a lot of the 2016 team that went 4-8. I mean, obviously a good 2-0 start, but it's a team with a lot of talent, but not enough experience in the right positions. You know, that opening game in 2016 against Texas that Notre Dame lost in overtime, it looks like they were going to have a similar result against Florida State with that overtime game where they were able to eke one out there. But I mean, this is a team right now that's playing a lot of close games, and it seems like they're going to be playing close games throughout the season. And that 2016 team, the story was they played all those close games and they couldn't seem to pull enough of them out. We'll see if they're able to do that more so this season, or if they can make them a little bit less close. But I mean, the big story out of this weekend, I think, out of this Notre Dame team is we've got a quarterback controversy brewing in South Bend. Tyler Buckner, Jack Cone. What are you guys thinking in terms of this weekend? Who do you guys want to see? Chloe, we'll start with you.
I mean, I'm all about the hype. I have a lot of respect for Jack Cone, and I think he has this experience that the team does need, but I love Tyler Buckner. I love his energy. I love that he can run the ball, and I love that he gives Tommy Rees some options for his play calls. And I really think that Buckner can do some great things. We saw it this weekend against Toledo. He did some amazing runs and kind of got us out of ruts in some drives. So I really would love to see Buckner, honestly.
John, what about you?
So rarely have a two-quarterback system ever work. You look at college, you look at NFL, it never really seems to develop. But that doesn't mean that we can't try. We can be the first, right? And I want to preface this by saying Jack Cone is not the problem. He brings a cannon and an arm to the team. He has leadership and experience through his time with Wisconsin, which has been a great program during his tenure there. But unfortunately, he's got cinder blocks for feet, and with our offensive line being incapable of keeping a pocket for longer than 3 seconds, Jack Cohn has been a sitting duck for most of his dropbacks, and that kind of keeps him from using that strong arm that he's known for, which is why I think we need Buckner as a change of pace player, as a spark plug, especially when the opposing defense gets too aggressive, when they start sending multiple linebackers in these blitz packages and Cohn gets overwhelmed. Send in Buckner, keep them humble, and with the quarterback run, because when you give the direct snap to the quarterback, you have another lead back blocker with the running back, so that it enables you to have more opportunities to get down the field.
To extend drives
line
and finish this game.
as many bodies blocking defenders as possible. I think that we do need to mix up a bit with Buckner's snaps. I think that he needs to throw it a bit more to keep the defense guessing. Over 70% of his snaps against Toledo were designed quarterback runs. And he has such good pocket presence, even as a true freshman. He's more of a Russell Wilson than a Lamar Jackson. I want to see him scramble to step up and make throws rather than just take off running. And I think he definitely has the arm to do that.
Yeah, I mean, my big worry with Tyler Buckner is I feel like the reason he worked so well against Toledo is because they'd never seen him play before. They didn't really prep for him. I think if teams have a chance to prep for Buckner and they continue to use him the way that they did on Saturday, they're going to be ready for it, and it's not going to work as well. So that's why I think Jack Cohn is probably the answer for right now. He just needs to get better at reading blitzes and reading the rush, because he has to know that this offensive line isn't very experienced. He's not going to have much time to throw it on many of these plays. So he's got to be more aware of those blitz packages, some quicker throws, get him a little bit settled, get the defense on its heels, because I think Buckner, unless they use him more in the passing game, that just kind of running QB that they ran against Toledo isn't necessarily going to work. So now I kind of want to talk about, because obviously this is a team that's struggled thus far. What do you guys think has been the biggest thing holding this team back thus far? John, we'll start with you.
The Notre Dame defense last year is what carried us to the college football playoff. Obviously, Book was great, Kyron Williams was stellar, Michael Mayer was great as a freshman, but what really, got us to be the number 4 ranked team in the country was that defense. And Marcus Freeman is one of the best defensive minds in the country. I wouldn't mind seeing him taking over Brian Kelly one day as the head coach of this program. But with his defense comes a couple of drawbacks as well. He's incredibly aggressive, and I love watching his exotic blitz packages. It was such a thrill for me to see the different stunts he'd have the linebackers pull against Toledo, and the twist on the defensive line. But at the same time, that aggression, when the pass rush can't get any pressure on the quarterback, results in deep plays down the field. You can see right here, the defensive line got caught up and allowed for a big run that took Toledo all the way down for 76 yards down the field. Additionally, if there's any sort of passing plays, any sort of deep developing drives down the field, the corners usually can get beat then. We don't necessarily have the best secondary in the country outside of course, Kyle Hamilton. So if the defense can't generate pressure, those guys are liable to get beat. And especially going against David Bell this week in Purdue, I think that's going to be a big problem. We need to look for more consistency in the fourth quarter, and we want to keep as many the pressure going as much as possible. Keep their quarterbacks rattled so they can't develop any deep drives.
Chloe, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, more away from the X's and O's, this team is not cohesive. I mean, we saw in the last 2 games, I don't know if we just saw bad examples of the team, but honestly, it's not the Notre Dame team that we all know and love. There's just no connection. I mean, the thing that worries me about this is that usually isn't a quick fix. So what will we see this weekend against Purdue? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at this team, and I think you think about Notre Dame teams that have been successful in the past, and I think the best players on those teams have been linebackers and offensive linemen. You think about back to last year, you got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Liam Eichenberg, guys like that who went in the draft, who are now not on the team anymore, and it's these younger guys who are taking over, and while they have a lot of talent, they don't necessarily have a lot of experience. And then you've also got guys injured on both of those positions, like Blake Fisher, obviously. He's going to be a stud for Notre Dame in 1 or 2 years, but right now he's injured, not doing anything for them. And Shane Simon injured at linebacker as well. I mean, it's just kind of unfortunate because those are the 2 positions that have really carried these successful Notre Dame teams in the past. And I think that's definitely what's holding them back. But I mean, a lot of doubt about this team right now. I guess the big question on my mind right now is it too early to call this a rebuilding year for this Notre Dame team? Chloe, what do you think?
See, I'm an optimistic person, and if I had my way, Notre Dame would win a national championship every year, and I like to keep that mindset. But I don't know. I say give them one more game. I think Notre Dame tends to play down to teams, and I guess I'll give you my answer in 24 hours, honestly.
Okay. John.
we knew this would be a rebuilding year as soon as we had 9 players drafted for the NFL. We had 6 players drafted in the first 4 rounds, and those were some of our best. You see the highlight here, Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah, the absolute leader of our defensive unit last year, and it was his plays against Clemson that really solidified our victory, including when he was able to anticipate the pitch out to Etienne for that touchdown. He was the heart and soul, and losing him was devastating. And again, I love Cone. He's not the problem. But Ian Book was the leader of that offense. He was the captain of the team for years and years and years. So he knew losing him was going to be a bit of a problem. And he knew that Cone was going to be a bit of a stopgap guy, being a transfer until we got Buckner or another quarterback come in and replace Book. So I think that for the most part, we know that there is going to be lack of cohesiveness, as we've said, losing all the starters. The offensive line as well. Like, we lost 4 out of 5 starters last year. That's not something that you can do and expect success, especially with a position like the offensive line, in which chemistry and cohesiveness is the most important. More so than physical abilities, it's about communication and being able to pick up blitzes as a unit. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's too early to call this a rebuilding year. I think you look at the way this team has kind of been playing. We've had a lot of turnovers thus far. That's been a big problem for this team. One of the things that really took away momentum in that Toledo game, as you see here, that strip sack fumble in the first quarter on Jack Cohn. So the turnovers are kind of obviously something that are fixable, but if they keep happening the way they do, here you also see the pick 6 that happened to give Toledo the lead into the half, which gives teams a lot of momentum. Obviously, we've talked about it. This is just a team that they lost a lot of key pieces. I mean, I feel like we criticized Ian Book a lot while he was here, but having a guy who's like a solidified starter and a solidified winner like Ian Book is, it's definitely tough to lose that kind of guy.
You miss him when he's gone.
You miss him when you got. Yeah, I know. We took him for granted. Not the first time, right? But yeah, moving away from Notre Dame and into the rest of college football, there's a lot of teams fluctuating. Some you're buying, some you're selling. For more on that with the College Football Stock Watch, our own Sam Ouhaj.
What's going on, Shamrock Sports? I'm Sam Ouhaj, and let's get into a new segment we're starting called the College Football Stock Market. So the way this segment is going to be working is we'll be taking a look at 3 teams that I'm looking to hold their stock and 3 teams that I'm looking to sell their stock. So right now, the teams that I'm high on are Oregon, Iowa, and Arkansas. Getting into Oregon beat OSU and Columbus without their star player, Kevin Thibodeau, which was a huge, huge, huge upset. It puts Oregon at number 4. The run game did look amazing with C.J. Verdell, who had 20 carries for 161 yards, and the Oregon Ducks absolutely ran all over the Buckeyes, having over 269 yards as a team and 3 scores from the ground. They could be a contender when Thibodeau comes back. I'm very high on Oregon, and they're a stock that I'm willing to hold right now. I'm a big believer in the Ducks. Coming at number 2, we have Iowa. Iowa beat Iowa State to take the number 5 ranking in the AP poll, and they beat them by a score of 27-17. The offense is a little shaky, but the defense did have 3 interceptions, and a fun fact, they lead college football in interceptions since 2018. The special teams also looked phenomenal, and Charlie Jones had a day, having 97 total yards on both punt and kickoff returns. Kirk Ferentz is a coach that players want to play for, and I'm really high on Iowa this year, and they could be a team that can make it into the college football playoffs. And our last spot for the stock I'm high on is the Arkansas Razorbacks. They jumped up 37 spots to number 18. They blew out number 15 Texas 40-21 in an absolute massacre. Texas is in shambles right now, and they have a gritty defense who can make plays when needed. Hayden Henry, their star linebacker, had 12 total tackles. Those are the 3 teams that I'm high on. Now getting into the 3 teams that we need to absolutely sell. Starting at number 1, hate to say it, huge Irish fan, but Notre Dame, I'm out on them. I think they're not a contender. I think they're a pretender. They almost lost to Toledo, almost gave everyone a heart attack, and this should have been a blowout win. The defense is letting up too many big plays. That's something that we discussed in the radio booth. Way too many big plays, and I guess that's football with the big plays, but they just look lost on defense. Hopefully they could rally behind Marcus Freeman, but as of right now, this Notre Dame team is not a team I'm high on. Also, I'm not a big fan of this 2 QB system that we saw in the game. I get it. They want to see Tyler Buckner. He's fast. You're down to your 3rd string left tackle. He's good, but also Jack Cohn needs to get some reps in there, and when you're changing the momentum between the 2 quarterbacks, it's not a good look for Brian Kelly and Tommy Rees. They also kept 2 unranked opponents in Florida State and Toledo in those games, and I can't stress that enough. They have a huge matchup this weekend against unranked Purdue, and I think this game's going to be a lot closer, but I'm out on Notre Dame. Coming in at the second team I'm out on, we have the Texas Longhorns. Already mentioning them getting blown out by the Arkansas Razorbacks, this Texas team is awful. They currently have a quarterback controversy between Hudson Card losing his starting job to Casey Thompson, and they allowed 333 rushing yards to Arkansas, which is something you don't really hear out of a Texas defense. The school is also not supporting their players, which is a serious issue, and they seem to be ignorant to the whole thing going on with this team and how they haven't been good since Sam Ehlinger was their quarterback. And lastly, we have the Utah Utes. I'm not as low on them. They have a lot of potential as a college football team. However, they could not get off the field against BYU, and that is something that concerns me. The offense made too many mistakes, and once again, it seems to be the recurring theme with these three teams that I'm out on. They have a running back controversy between Micah Bernard and Tavion Thomas. I'm not too happy about the Utes, but the Utes are a gritty team. They're a solid team. They're well-developed and well-coached, but that BYU loss definitely concerns me a little bit going forward. This has been the college football stock market. I told you the teams I'm in on. I told you the teams I'm out on. I'm passing it back to you guys at Shamrock Sports. I'm Sam Ouhaj.
Thank you, Sam. So with that in mind, the rest of college football, I feel like we've talked a lot about Notre Dame thus far. I want to kind of take a look at the grand scope of college football right now. And the big game from this past weekend was that matchup in Columbus. Oregon upsets Ohio State 35-28. I want to get your guys' thoughts on that. John, we'll start with you.
As a Big Ten elitist, I have loved reveling in the misery of the Pac-12 the last couple of years. But unfortunately, I believe that is coming to an end now, as Oregon is a legit contender for the college football playoff. They were dominant. That offensive line demolished the Ohio State defense. And even their wide receivers were blocking better than a lot of Notre Dame's offensive linemen, quite frankly. Just great execution in pulling their guards and tackles from the right to the left and just absolutely dominating the left side of the field. C.J. Verdell is one of the best running backs in the country, and I expect him to continue his dominance as well.
Yeah, for sure. Chloe, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the biggest thing people have with college football is the same teams are good every year. And Oregon has been a good program, but I'm glad that they're getting back to that top 5 team again. This win was honestly great for college football, and it's kind of a win-win situation. That doesn't mean that Ohio State's not going to make it to the college football playoffs, and it does help Oregon maybe get a potential to make it this year. And I just love seeing new teams win and new teams just on the horizon. So I'm excited for Oregon this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the grand scope of the Pac-12 and the rest of Oregon's schedule, I think Oregon is primed for a playoff position right now. I mean, obviously, you know, it's a 12-game season. There's a lot of little missteps and places you can stumble along the way. But, I mean, you look at this Oregon team, they were dominant. John, you mentioned C.J. Verdell. I mean, here you see that big 77-yard touchdown run in the third quarter of that game. This Oregon team, with the way the rest of the Pac-12 looks, I don't know if anyone's going to compete with them. And Chloe, you're right. I could see that 2015 Marcus Mariota type Oregon team returning. So I mean, this team has a lot of potential. I think you look at the scope of college football right now. I think obviously you got Bama and Georgia top 2, and they're both kind of steamrolling their way towards a potential SEC championship matchup. But I think Oregon, they look primed for that number 3 spot right now. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where they end up and if they stumble along the way. But then kind of coming back to relating the rest of college football to football here at Notre Dame, I want to get your guys' take on Notre Dame's future opponents, because we've got a tough slate coming up in October, a bunch of ranked matchups in a row. I want to get your guys' opinion on which game are you the most scared for this Notre Dame team. Chloe, what's your nightmare matchup?
Oh my gosh, I am scared for Cincinnati. As I said before, our offensive line at Notre Dame isn't looking so hot, and Cincinnati is known for their amazing defense, specifically their defensive line, and they have a ton of amazing returners and a transfer, Juwan Diggs, a defensive tackle, who has been playing just outstanding. And if our offensive line can't hold against Toledo's defensive line, I don't know what Cincinnati's going to do to us.
John, what do you think?
Yeah, I second that. I'm scared of the Bearcats. It's going to be, the grand return of, Marcus Freeman going to play his old team. And I'm excited for that. The storylines are going to be phenomenal. But at the same time, I'm going to be worried, and it comes down to the defense that Marcus Freeman did build in Cincinnati. It's going to be just as good as it was last year. And it's going to be led by Myjai Sanders, who is one of the premier edge rushers in the country. His combination of power and speed is elite. And he's actually ranked as #1 in the American Conference by Pro Football Focus amongst all pass rushers, and with over 4 pressures a game last season, and has been off to a hot start already. I also want to point out Curtis Brooks is an elite interior defensive lineman as well. He's going to be able to soak up a lot of offensive line attention, and he's going to be just stuffing the run on almost every single play. He's going to give Kyron Williams fit, and I hope that he can break through it. Ahmad Gardner in the secondary, he's a Thorpe Award candidate, one of the best shutdown corners in the country. He's really great as a press man coverage and has not allowed a touchdown in his entire time at Cincinnati thus far. So we'll see. Hopefully Kevin Austin Jr. can pull it off, be the one guy to beat Gardner, but we'll see about that. I really think that the aggression is going to be a pain for Notre Dame, keeping up with all the blitz packages in Cincinnati, and we need the offensive line to step up. Hopefully some guys will be healthier for then, and by that week we'll have a bit more cohesion and chemistry amongst the unit.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Cincinnati game, I think Cincinnati is the best team we're going to play, but it's a game at home. I think Notre Dame has not lost a game at home since 2017. So, I mean, that doesn't make them invincible at home, but I think at the very least they keep it close against Cincinnati. I'm really worried about Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin is a team. It's a neutral site game. Notre Dame hasn't always been the best at those neutral site games over the past few years. It's a game being played at 11 o'clock Central Time, or 12 o'clock Central Time, which is 11 o'clock here at Notre Dame. So it's going to be an early game for those guys. And I mean, this Wisconsin team, historically, they've just been an absolutely killer defense. You know, I could see that game being like a 17-6 game, honestly. Wisconsin, you can see their defensive line here. They're just so dominant. And I'm really worried for Notre Dame in that game because they don't always show out in these neutral site and road games as much as they do at home. I could see that one potentially being, you know, not just a loss for Notre Dame, but one that looks bad in the grand scope of college football. I don't know. We'll see. But then coming up this weekend, there's some exciting matchups. John, what's most exciting for you this weekend?
So I'm looking at Michigan State and Miami. I think this is going to be the Spartans' return to prominence. It makes me happy, too, because Sparty...
Big Ten elitist.
Yes, Big Ten elitist, and Sparty's easily one of the best mascots in college football. So I'm glad to be able to see him celebrating instead of crying on the sidelines for the first time in a while. I think Mel Tucker is a phenomenal coach. The way he's turned the program around in just a couple of years after D'Antonio stepped down following the scandal that rocked the university in the 2010s. He's just instilled a new culture there that has revitalized the program. And I think that Miami is on upset alert this week because their starting running back, Don Chaney Jr., is out. He's hurt. And De'Aaron King is really going to have to shoulder a lot of the load of the offense. And he hasn't shown out as much as I thought he would be through the first 2 weeks. And Michigan State's offense has been prolific. You know, we all know Le'Veon Bell came from Michigan State. And I want to point out a new guy who I think would be almost just as good, and that is Kenneth Walker III. He's a sophomore transfer from Wake Forest, and he had 247 rushing yards against Northwestern the first week. Michigan State is currently 6th in all of college football in rushing yards per game at 299, and they are also 4th in yards per game with 553, and second in the Big Ten with 40 points a game. Their offense can get out in a hurry, and I expect them to just kind of punch Miami in the face early on and take off running. Kenneth Walker III, Heisman, dark horse.
You did your prep work for that question. I like that one, John. You could have been making those up, but you were saying them confidently enough that I believe you. Chloe, what's your game of the weekend?
I got to go with two huge football schools. You know, football runs in these schools' bloods, Alabama and Florida. And obviously, Alabama's favored to win, but I think that Florida is going to give them a run for their money. They're going down to Gainesville, and, you know, the fans are going to be excited. The biggest thing is the quarterbacks. We got Richardson and Jones both play for Florida, and they're amazing runners. And if they can escape the pocket and go all the way, I think that's going to be the key to Florida winning. If Alabama can keep those quarterbacks locked in, then Alabama wins. But it's going to be a great game, and I'm excited to watch.
Yeah, I mean, if Alabama doesn't take a 28-0 lead in the first half, we'll see how that goes. I'm really looking forward to Auburn-Penn State. I think these are two teams that have kind of similar storylines over the past couple of years. It's two teams that have kind of crumbled under the pressure whenever the spotlight has been on them. But I mean, Auburn right now has been destroying opponents. They're outscoring them 122-10, albeit it's against Akron and Alabama State, who, like, if I told you that Scooby-Doo was their starting running back, you might believe me. But I mean, you know, the question for this Auburn team is Bo Nix legit? And then for Penn State, started the season off with a bang, win at Wisconsin, see if they can keep it rolling, because James Franklin has had trouble keeping consistency throughout the season. in his time at Penn State. But I think it's a fun weekend of college football games. I mean, we'll be occupied on Saturday at the game, but gonna be checking my phone a lot. But to take a look from football at Notre Dame to the rest of sports at Notre Dame, a fall sports segment from our very own Jacob Irons.
Welcome back to the Fall Sports Recap. I'm Jacob Irons, where we'll be taking you through all the fall sports that are happening on campus this semester. This week we take a look at the women's soccer team and the men's golf team. Women's soccer had a packed weekend playing 2 games as they first took on Detroit Mercy on Friday, and they won in a dominating fashion 8-0 in their largest margin of victory this year. And they scored 3 goals in a matter of 5 minutes. As you can see here, Corbin Albert, the freshman out of Rays Lake, Illinois, scores not once but twice in the 5-minute span. The Lady Fighting Irish kept their winning spirits alive as they topped Brown 2-1 in a come-from-behind victory. Sammy Fisher recorded her 3rd game-winning goal of the season, ending the rally with Notre Dame on top. The women's soccer team is back in action on Saturday as they take on Syracuse at 7 p.m. at Alumni Stadium. With this contest, they begin their ACC play. Now flipping gears to men's golf, where they rallied on the final day of the Gopher Invitational to shoot a combined 9 under par to earn them a tie with Kansas. Palmer Jackson led the Irish with a 6 under par 207 to finish tied for 4th overall on the individual leaderboard, while Davis Chatfield highlighted the late rally for the Irish with 3 birdies in his final 3 holes played, eventually shooting a 67 in the final round. They're back in action the 27th and 28th of September in the Northwestern Winden Invitational. That's going to do it for this fall sports recap. For Shamrock Sports, I'm Jacob Irons.
Thank you very much, Jacob. So, guys, I've got some bad news. We have to watch another Notre Dame football game tomorrow.
No.
We have to go through. I mean, who knows? Maybe they'll pick it up. But Purdue coming into town, in-state rivalry. What adjustments are you guys looking for against the Boilermakers of Purdue? Chloe, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so while we're all sitting in the student section, I will be watching the offensive line, especially the blind side. In the last 2 games, they had 10 sacks against them, and I feel like that is way too many for a Notre Dame team that usually, again, has great offensive line. Left tackle Michael Carmody left the game last week injured, and young Tosh Baker came in and honestly didn't look too great. Kelly said that Carmody is looking better, but it's going to be a game time decision whether he plays or not. So I'm definitely looking for whoever plays a better protection on that blind side.
John, what are you looking for?
Well, the adjustments have started already. I don't know if you guys have heard, but administration has cracked down. The Purdue drum will not be allowed into the game. I think right there, that's going to be a big help for. Oh, it's a big difference. Yeah. The drum has carried Purdue throughout their years, so not having it there, it's going to be helpful for us. But I want to focus on the defense for Notre Dame because that has been our identity for so long now, and that is, the big excitement was Marcus Freeman coming in and instituting his brilliant Cincinnati scheme, particularly his 3-down defender dollar formation, which frankly has not been all that successful thus far. And I think that's largely attributed to the fact that our strength of our defense this year, rather than the linebackers, is actually in our defensive line, in our edge rushers. We want to have 4-down defenders at all times. I don't want to see a 3-4 at all against Purdue. I want to be able to generate pressure, especially because Jack Plummer, Purdue's quarterback, has only started 2 games. And one of them was against UConn, who frankly does not deserve to be in the FBS anymore. So I think that in order to prevent any sort of big plays, we're not going to be able to stay in front of David Bell the whole time. That's just a given. He's going to get his. So in order to prevent those from just destroying us, we need to go after Plummer, attack him, be aggressive, and dial up the exotic blitzes that Freeman is so famous for.
Mm-hmm. For UConn. Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, John. I think the big thing to look for is that is Notre Dame keeping the ball in front of them. You look at this Notre Dame team, in 3 years under Clark Lee, they allowed as many 60-yard plays as they have in the first 2 games under Marcus Freeman. I mean, this is a team that obviously they don't have the same defensive talent that they've had before, but I think the long plays are just kind of getting ridiculous, and if they keep allowing them, they're going to lose the game against Purdue tomorrow. So we'll see if they can slow those down. But in terms of what to watch tomorrow, personnel-wise, which players are you guys looking forward to watching and potentially stepping up for both teams, John?
So again, the defensive line is going to be critical for us, and I look to the leader of the line and frankly the entire defense. So that's Myron Tagovailoa Amoso. He is the leader of that front seven unit and just a great captain. Against Toledo, he was able to play that game during the day of his dad's funeral. So the mental toughness that proved and the leadership and dedication to the program is immense. I have all the respect in the world to him and his struggle throughout this hard time. And I think that makes it all the more impressive that he already has 2 sacks on the season, including the game-winning strip sack against Toledo. He's going to need to dial up the pressure and work in tandem with J.D. Bertrand. He was phenomenal as well against Toledo, too. 10 tackles, 1 sack. The 2 of them together are going to work in tandem using Marcus Freeman's twist. We want to see Myron go on inside, Bertrand's going outside, and we're going to get some pressure on them. I think the 2 of them together are going to be key.
Chloe, who are you looking at?
Yeah, of course, Michael Mayer. We all see him. We all love him. We're a tight end machine here at Notre Dame, and that's you can see that obviously in Michael Mayer. The only issue I have, I love his touches. The issue is he has some big time drops, and he really needs to come more clutch in some of these passes. Sorry, I just think that he has a lot of potential, and he's young, but I still think he is someone to watch during this game.
For sure, yeah. I mean, personally, I look at, on the Purdue side, you mentioned him earlier, David Bell. He's been an absolute monster in Purdue's first 2 games. 14 catches, 255 yards, 3 touchdowns. And with the way Notre Dame's corners have looked, I think he could have a big day against this Notre Dame team. You see some of his highlights here in that game against Iowa. I mean, he's just a guy who's so athletic, so fast, can go up and get a jump ball. He's someone who's going to be really dangerous for this Purdue team tomorrow. And then on the Notre Dame side, we've talked a lot about the offensive line. Michael Carmody, who started at left tackle in place of the injured Blake Fisher, got injured himself, but he was struggling before that. You mentioned Tosh Baker taking over for him. That left tackle position is going to be really important, protecting the blind side tomorrow. So, I mean, I think that's obviously going to be the difference maker tomorrow. I think if that left tackle position can't hold up, it's going to be a long day for Jack Cohn, and this Purdue defensive line is going to feast against this Notre Dame team. But we talked earlier about Buckner or Cohn, and I think regardless of who plays, I think we're going to see both of them. So I think the big question is, how much of Tyler Buckner do you guys want to see? Jack Cohn's listed as the starter right now, but what in terms of Buckner snaps, what are you looking for, Chloe?
Again, we talked about this before. It scares me, a two quarterback system. But I guess if we did play both, which I know we will, I definitely want to see a lot of Tyler Buckner. I think he's more creative in the pocket, and I feel like he's more exciting too. It makes me excited. I know it also makes the team excited. If you look at that, wow, look at that run right there. That's insane. He just has so much talent, and he's just such a young and energetic kid, and I'm so excited to see him play tomorrow and for his career here.
John, you want to see a lot of your boy Buck?
You know, I believe in Tyler Buckner. I believe he will be the one to lead us to the promised land of a national championship. But now is not the time, not so fast. I think Buckner's usage is going to depend largely on the offensive line. You talk about Carmody. Can he stop George Karlaftis? He is going to be a pain in the offensive line side the entire game. He's viewed as a first-round defensive end right now, and he's had 5 tackles already. He's just going to wreak havoc, and it's very important that we're able to stop them.
Yeah, okay. I think we'll see a decent amount. I want to see, if we see Buckner, I want to see him throw more. But real quick, we're running out of time here. Score predictions for tomorrow. Chloe.
It's going to be a really close game, but because of the luck of the Irish and touchdown Jesus, I feel like Notre Dame's going to come up on top. I say 28-24, Notre Dame win.
John?
Defense is going to reign supreme. Both sides are going to have a field day. I see a lot of sacks, a lot of turnovers. 21-18, roll Irish.
Every week, we come on the show, and all 3 of us just predict Notre Dame to win. And at this point, I don't think they deserve it anymore. I'm going with the Boilermakers. 34 Purdue, 27 Notre Dame. I'm going to be the enemy of the people here. I'm worried about this team. I think we're 2-1 after tomorrow, guys. I don't know. But that about wraps it up. You guys excited for tomorrow?
I'm just shocked that you went with that prediction right now. I don't think you're coming back. I don't think you're putting this headset on again.
Yeah,
that's a deep right ball from Castellanos.
We need a little break from Chris.
Oh, my goodness. All right, yeah, but fun show today, guys. We'll see how tomorrow works out, but I mean, I think it'll be a fun one regardless. So for John Bailey, Chloe Stafford, and the rest of us here at NDTV, I'm Chris Frick. Thank you so much for tuning in.